as you can see, I'm back here with my friend, Carrie Williams, who's a financial coach. And we thought it would be a great time to have a conversation about making meaningful changes. We're in a new year, and last year was one for the record books. That goes without saying. But even going into this new year, very often we find ourselves making or setting some goals that may be similar to goals we've had in the past or things that we've been striving to achieve maybe for a while. So we wanted to come on today and talk about ways that we've seen or we've helped people institute some changes in their lives that actually stick around. So Carrie, thank you so much for joining me again today. I love having conversations with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, absolutely. So to get the conversation started, just high level, what are some tips or things that you've either experienced yourself in your own life or things you've seen clients work through that you might share with us to help people make meaningful changes and actually make sustainable changes?
Yeah, Christina, I love this topic because it comes around every year, right? You do your New Year's resolutions, and then by mid-January or end of January, if you're lucky, those New Year's resolutions are out the window and you've kind of already, forgotten about them. And so how do you make a change and make it stick? You really have to break it down into reasonable mini goals, I think. That's one thing that works for me is that if you try to set too big of a goal, it gets overwhelming. And then, it's hard to see how can you get from point A to point B. And you just end up getting discouraged and overwhelmed and then you quit. Right. And so what I found is, breaking it into little mini goals and then giving yourself, some milestones that you can celebrate along the way, break it down and give yourself some grace too. Every day is a new day.
Somebody said to me once that you got to break it down to the ridiculous. Break it down to something so small that it's not as impactful to implement. Somebody told me the other day that they got an elliptical machine for Christmas and they're going to get up every morning and use that elliptical machine. And I'll tell you what, I hope this person does, because it just exercise alone, it changes the chemical reactions in your body. It makes such a big difference. But I was thinking to myself, that's a big goal. That is a big goal to go from nothing to every day. Break it down to something ridiculous. If she can commit to one day, that is something, like you said, to be celebrated. Always celebrate the small things. I love that. Definitely breaking it down to just baby steps.
Absolutely. Yep. And just trying to repeat it as much as you can over and over and over. And every little step forward is progress.
Yes, exactly. And celebrate every step. That's right. How do you find it's helpful to identify when you're ready to make that change?
Yeah, so that's another good one is what I find sometimes is clients have the thought of, well, I know that I should do this, or my parents want me to do this, or my spouse thinks we should do this. And really, if you're going to make meaningful change, it has to be your goal. You have to be 100% behind it, because otherwise it's going to be really, really hard to carry through. So that's one thing that I found is you've got to own it. And
I'm screaming in my head, own it. Yes, that's perfect.
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, like from a financial standpoint, I feel like, and this is, I'm taking this from my Dave Ramsey training, but you have to sometimes have that never again moment where you get to a point where something happens, and it could be last year, through COVID, if you lost your employment or, you had some kind of financial hardship, you get to a point where you're like, never again do I want to be in this position, and I'm ready to make the change. But it has to be something like that. It has to be a trigger where it's like, okay, I never want to go back there again.
That's a really great analogy, and never again, or a great thing to look for, because what you made me think of when you said that is, there's two things. The first thing you made me think of when you said never again is how many people I know I've worked with that have paid off a mountain of credit card debt to tell themselves never again will it get that bad, right? That's a huge motivator. And the other thing you made me think of is something that I say to clients all the time is the best thing that we can do in our work together is make sure you always have choices. You're never in a situation where you only have one way out.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Have a plan B and a plan C and sometimes a plan D, because if 2020 told us anything, it was that you never know what's going to happen. So be prepared for the unexpected.
And I have to admit, if nothing else, it got me to a point, not only just to say it philosophically, but to really believe that it's not going to be the last time we say in our lifetime, we've never seen this before.
Right.
I think in our lifetime in particular, we have seen so many rapid changes that have never been done before. So many innovations, so many unexpected things that's kind of our normal. There's always going to be something we have to adapt to, which is another interesting topic that I hadn't actually given any previous thought to, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. When you are on track with a plan, you've got a nice routine and you're implementing a meaningful change, what are some of the things we can do to cope with the stress of changes that are thrust upon us? How do we maintain that adaptability? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because things are going to come out of nowhere and they're going to try to, derail your plan. I mean, that's just the inevitable.
Yep.
In coping with stress that brings, I would say focus on what you can control, because that's another big thing that really struck me this past year. Was there was a lot of things going on that were big stressors, but ultimately you can focus on what you can control, and that helps with it helps you to not get overwhelmed, I guess. Just focus on controlling what you can control.
I love that. Another thing that I've been sharing with folks is when you're trying to make a meaningful change in your life, and it could be financial changes, it could be weight loss changes. I did a video, I think back on Monday, just a few days ago, about the similarities, oddly enough, between financial planning and weight loss, and having to stick to some really difficult changes sometimes. There are 3 things that I feel like make people infinitely more successful. And that's 1, to have the right tools, 2, to have the right motivation, and 3, to have the right support. Right. Because you know what? We are in an environment where we have information at our fingertips. We have access to answers to all the questions in the world. But if you're trying to implement a big task on your own, like making changes in your financial life or making changes for your health, making changes to your daily routine so you're not so stressed out and burned out, you're going to need support to stick to those things. Absolutely. So, Carrie, wrap us up today with a little bit of a tip from the way you work with your clients as to why having support from someone like a financial coach like you or a financial planner like me is absolutely essential.
Yeah, I mean, you need trusted advisors in your corner for sure, because some of these things are too big to go out and do on your own. And like you said, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and but in order to really execute it on your own, you have to be so diligent and so regimented that it's really difficult. I mean, you need that support system when you start to go off track, somebody to hold you accountable, and even under stress. When people try to make decisions, especially financial decisions under stress, usually that is not a good thing. And so you need somebody to bounce things off of. And that's where you should go to your financial resources to bounce things off of, so that they can give you advice and they can kind of talk to you, and so that you can avoid making those bad decisions, when you're stressed.
I have said it over and over again for anyone who's ever watched one of my videos or seen my posts. We don't make good financial decisions when we're under stress. We don't make good decisions at all when we're not right with ourselves. So absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big proponent for mental health in that respect. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So folks, we're going to wrap this up today. Thank you so much for watching along with us. We hope that you have success in making meaningful changes in your life. Tell us in the comments some of the things that you've tried to help keep you on track, because honestly, there are so many different answers and solutions out there. And if you've got something that's worked for you, share it, because other people will benefit from that. You can always find Carrie at Running Valley Financial Associates on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Christina Guerrieri, CFP. The last thing I will leave you with, folks, is as you're looking for a support system, people to help you in those financial goals, find a financial planner or a financial coach that cares about you and your life. Interview them, get to know them. And if you need a baseline, call Carrie, call me. We will help you understand exactly what you should be looking for and the questions you should be asking of that financial planner. Will get you on the right track. Well, that's it for us today, folks. Carrie, thank you again so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next time.